Peach cobbler with frozen peaches and pie crust is easy and delicious. I think that this is the best southern peach cobbler recipe ever because it has the perfect balance between taste and texture. The peach filling with brown sugar and cinnamon is sweet but not too sweet. Also, the crispy pie crust on top along with the soft dumplings inside give this cobbler a great combination of textures. Here in this pot, I have 24 ounces or 3 cups or 680 grams of frozen sliced peaches. They're starting to thaw, but if you take them directly from the freezer and put them in the pot, that's totally fine. I'm going to sweeten them up with 3/4 cup of white sugar as I measure 160 grams, a 1/4 cup of light brown sugar as I measure 60 grams, that's 160 and 60. 3/4 cup of water. I know it sounds kind of odd adding water to fruit, but a lot of southern cobbler recipes, whether they be blackberry or peach, they start off by cooking the fruit on the stovetop. If I just turn on the heat, these are probably going to burn before they really have a chance to cook. So you have to add some water. I'm adding a little bit more water than I did with my other cobblers because I don't want the peaches to break down too much. I want them to still be identifiable as peaches. So I may actually add a little more water. We'll see. I'm going to add, I know it's an odd measurement, 1/4 teaspoon plus 1/8 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I think that's just what I need. 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. There's some extra sugar off to the side for the top. Later on, I'm also going to add some cornstarch to thicken the filling. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons or 20 grams of cornstarch along with 2 tablespoons of water. So, like I said, making this peach cobbler with frozen peaches is easy. All I'm going to do is start by adding my water, my sugars, and my cinnamon and salt to the pot. I know a lot of people like to add spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, a lot of things, some lemon juice to their peach cobbler. In my opinion, canned peaches lose a lot of flavor in the canning process, so you have to add extra things. But frozen, they're almost like fresh, and I think they really shine if they have a little bit of help, but not too much. And now I'm just going to stir, and then I'm going to turn on my heat and bring this to a boil on high heat. My peaches have now come to a boil on high heat, so I'm going to turn down the heat to medium, and I am going to continue cooking these. For my other cobblers, I cooked them for 10 minutes. I'll probably do the same for this. I'm tempted to do a little bit less time, but I will let you know. My frozen peaches have now been cooking on medium heat for 10 minutes. I decided to go for the full 10. You can see the liquid has reduced a lot. One thing I wanted to mention is make sure that you stir, because at the beginning, if you don't, this will boil up. You can see there is some foam up here. That's because it came up to the top, but I turned it back down and started stirring again just in time. Now I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to add my slurry. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons or 20 grams of cornstarch mixed in with 2 tablespoons of water. You might be curious why I didn't add the cornstarch at the beginning along with the sugar and everything else. Boiling cornstarch activates its thickening properties, but if you boil it for too long, it can actually start to lose its thickening properties. Also, I have to add the cornstarch by first making a slurry or a mixture of cornstarch and some other cool liquid, because cornstarch does not mix into hot liquids. The amount of liquid that you need to make the slurry will vary, but honestly, I would count on equal parts of cornstarch and liquid. So 2 tablespoons of cornstarch mixed in with 2 tablespoons of water. Now my slurry with the 2 tablespoons of water, I'm going to pour that in while it's still warm, and I'm going to mix. So in terms of water, I added 3/4 of a cup to the frozen peaches when I first turned on the heat, and now I'm making a slurry with 2 tablespoons. And as you can see, that thickened it up very nicely. Even just in the past 20 seconds, you can see that the juice is a lot thicker. I tasted it. It tastes amazing. I think this is going to be absolutely delicious. Now that the filling for my peach cobbler is done, it's time to move on to the pie crust. I have an 8x8 casserole dish buttered off to the side, and there are a couple ways you could go about doing this. You can make it a double crust cobbler, so put one on the bottom, poke some holes in it so that it stays flat, par bake it at 350 uncovered for 5 minutes, then put in the filling, put on a top crust, poke some holes, and that's it. But a lot of southern peach cobbler recipes have dumplings or little pieces of dough. I've been doing that in all my cobblers this summer. I really like it, so I'm going to do that. Here I have one 9-inch homemade pie crust, but you can use store-bought if you want. And I am just going to cut it into strips like this. The strips are between 1 inch, maybe just under 1 inch, to maybe 1.5 inches wide. It is not important for them to all be the same size because you want some variety. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the pie crust into pieces, and I'm going to add it. Actually, it makes more sense to put it over here, but I'm just going to add my little pieces of pie crust dumplings to the peach filling. And after I add in a few, and like I said, they're not all the same size. I don't want them to all be the same size. I am going to stir them to make sure that they sink down into the filling. I just finished putting my pie crust dumplings into the peach filling. I didn't use quite all of the crust. There's still a little bit left. I felt like if I added a lot more dumplings, it would probably be overloaded, so I held off. Now I'm just going to pour the filling into my 8x8 casserole dish. Spread it out to make sure that the dumplings and peaches are evenly distributed. I'm going to get my other pie crust that's already made, and I'm going to preheat my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Actually, I may go ahead and add some more dumplings. Now it's time to put on the top. But before I do that, I wanted to mention that the dumplings are in smaller pieces than I had originally cut them because I stirred the peaches and the dumplings to combine and they fell apart, which is actually what I wanted. I wanted just little bits of dough here and there. Now what you could do is you could just put a top on this, a full piece of dough, cut some slits in it, and that's great. But I like to do a lattice top. I've been doing a lot of lattice tops this summer. So just like before, I cut my dough into strips. I'm just going to pull it up, whoops, and literally just place it on top. I know some people like to go over and under with their dough. I don't. I think it would be kind of hard because it's so juicy. The amount of space I'm putting between the strips is the the width of a strip. So one strip width between, the width of one strip between the strips, if that makes sense. It's kind of late. I'm not going to tell you what time it is, but I hope that made sense. The last one there, I'll take this one, it's kind of thinner. And now, the other way, I'm just going to literally lay strips on top. Like I said, nice and easy. Making peach cobbler with frozen peaches and pie crust is easy. I did want to say I tried the filling. It's good. Part of me wishes maybe I did add a bit of lemon juice, but honestly, I think it's one of those things where you might like one thing, another person might like another, so it could go either way. Here. So if you make this, I would suggest the first time maybe you don't add lemon juice, because lemon juice is, if you don't like it, you can't really get rid of it. What am I going to do here? I would maybe make it once, like I said, without the lemon juice, see how you like it, and then try it with, and go from there. Now I have my lattice top. One final thing. 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar and 1 tablespoon of white sugar. I'm just going to blend them together and then sprinkle on top. This peach cobbler is going to go into the oven at 350 degrees uncovered for, I'm guessing, 50 minutes, 50. But I will let you know. I'm trying to sprinkle the sugar on top of the crust, but if it gets into the peaches as well, that is okay. And just like with all of my fruit pies and cobblers, I'm going to bake this on top of a pizza pan. Whenever you have a fruit pie or a cobbler, make sure you bake it on something. I'm going to put it on this pizza pan. That way, if it boils over, it doesn't get on the bottom of the stove. My peach cobbler just came out of the oven. It was in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered for 50 minutes. 50. I was extremely excited to give this a try. Honestly, in terms of appearance, I thought it was perfect. One of my best masterpieces. The pie crust lattice on top turned perfectly golden brown, as did the sprinkling of sugar. I could see the juicy peach filling inside of the cobbler, and even though it did bubble up a little bit, not too much. So in my opinion, it was Food Network magazine picture perfect. And once I remove the first slice, you'll be able to see that the filling was absolutely perfect. In my opinion, one of the main differences between a pie and a cobbler is that the filling inside of a cobbler is a bit juicier and not quite as firm. So in terms of filling thickness, this was the best peach cobbler recipe ever. The peach filling inside was thick and juicy without being runny. But most important of all, the taste. This peach cobbler with frozen peaches and pie crust tasted absolutely amazing. Frozen peaches have a lot more flavor than canned. They're not quite as good as fresh, but they're pretty close, and this cobbler had a ton of peach flavor, much more so than the canned peach cobbler recipe I did last summer. I added more spices to the cobbler I did last summer because honestly, like I said, canned peaches aren't as flavorful, so they need more help. However, since frozen peaches are more flavorful, I didn't want to cover up the subtle peach flavor with a lot of extras. So just a bit of brown sugar and a touch of cinnamon did the trick. I know that a lot of traditional southern peach cobbler recipes add a lot of other spices like nutmeg and things like that. You can definitely do that if you want, but like I said, I think peaches are a great flavor, but a subtle flavor. So they need a little bit of help, but not too much. I know that I seem to go back and forth about the lemon juice, and honestly, Once this baked and cooled down, I felt like it was absolutely perfect without the lemon juice. Lemon juice in peach cobbler is a personal thing, but honestly, I think it's more necessary if you're using the canned peaches. In terms of texture, I love the combination of the crispy crust on top and the soft dumplings inside. I know that the pie crust dumplings inside may seem a bit odd, but they worked really well in this. I can't quite put my finger on why I really like the pie crust dumplings so much, but you should definitely give it a try because I know you'll like it. Like I said, this peach cobbler with frozen peaches and pie crust recipe was an absolute masterpiece. This actually turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to, and it was the best thing that I had eaten in a long time. Honestly, this is probably the best peach cobbler recipe I have ever eaten, so I know it would be perfect for the summer, 4th of July, or the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you give this a try. See you next time.